Manchester United striker Mason Greenwood was arrested and charged with attempted rape, assault occasioning actual bodily harm, and controlling and coercive behaviour following the publication of an audio clip purporting to be of Mason Greenwood forcing himself upon a woman, as well as pictures alleging that he had assaulted the same woman. On the 2nd of February 2023, the decision was made to drop all charges following a determination by the Crown Prosecution Service that there was no longer a realistic prospect of conviction following the withdrawal of a key witness and new evidence coming to light. And at the time, I produced a video, and a link is in the description above, of why that decision was made. So why then have Manchester United announced, following the decision to drop all charges, that Mason Greenwood will not play for Manchester United again? I'll look to explain in this video. The first thing to say is that the decision to drop all charges against Mason Greenwood comes against the backdrop of the Crown Prosecution Service being required to prove the case to the criminal standard, which most of you will know is beyond a reasonable doubt, or so that a jury is sure. The fact that the Crown Prosecution Service determined that they could not meet this high standard, particularly in light of the withdrawal of a key witness, meant that they were obliged to drop the case in these circumstances. So you may be thinking, well, hang on a minute, why is Mason Greenwood not free to play for Manchester United, as he is effectively innocent in the eyes of the law? Well, the answer to that is it's not quite as simple as that. The question then turns from whether or not Mason Greenwood has committed a criminal offence to the question of whether or not his actions have amounted to gross misconduct or give rise to Manchester United terminating his contract. And the determination of whether or not Mason Greenwood has committed an act of gross misconduct is determined on the civil standard of proof, which is much lower than the criminal standard of proof, and that is on the balance of probabilities, or whether it is more likely than not. So Manchester United will have to consider whether it is more likely than not that the allegations are true, such that they have been able to prove gross misconduct against Mason Greenwood. So did Manchester United find that Mason Greenwood had committed an act of gross misconduct such that they could terminate his contract? Well, the short answer to that is no. Manchester United launched what they called an internal inquiry, which concluded in August of 2023 to look into all the circumstances behind the case. And at the conclusion of the internal process, Manchester United stated the following: "Our process commenced in February of 2023 following all charges against Mason being dropped. Throughout, we have taken into account the wishes, rights and perspective of the alleged victim, along with the club's standards and values, and sought to collate as much information and context as possible. This has required us to proceed with sensitivity and care to obtain evidence not in the public domain, including those with direct knowledge of the case. Based on the evidence available to us, we have concluded that the material posted online did not provide a full picture and that Mason did not commit the offences in respect of which he was originally charged. That said, as Mason publicly acknowledges today, he has made mistakes which he is taking responsibility for." If Manchester United had have determined that the allegations were substantiated to the extent that they were true on the balance of probabilities, then they would have been permitted under employment law to terminate Mason Greenwood's contract for gross misconduct. As it was, they did not determine that Mason Greenwood's actions amounted to gross misconduct and therefore did not terminate his contract. Whilst they did not terminate his contract, they did conclude their statement by saying, "All those involved, including Mason, recognise the difficulties with him recommencing his career at Manchester United. It has therefore been mutually agreed that the most appropriate way for him to do so is away from Old Trafford, and we will now work with Mason to achieve that outcome." In the next part of the video, I will look at why that decision to send Mason Greenwood away from Manchester United, despite the fact he had not committed an act of gross misconduct in their view, why that decision was taken. This case, as you might expect, has generated a lot of commentary from both sides of the argument. On the one hand, you will have particularly Manchester United fans who will say that, well, Mason Greenwood is innocent until proven guilty, and he's also a talented footballer who could have scored many goals for Manchester United. Why should someone who is innocent in the eyes of the law not be permitted to play football now that all of the charges have been dropped? And then on the other hand, you will have organisations like domestic abuse charities and high-profile female fans such as Rachel Riley, as well as the views of fans from other football clubs who have heard the audio clip, seen the photographs of the alleged behaviour of Mason Greenwood, and also heard of the circumstances of Mason Greenwood breaching his bail conditions, as well as the circumstances of the withdrawal of the key witness in this case, which I cannot discuss any further for legal reasons. Manchester United, as part of their internal process, are reported to have looked at other cases from the entertainment, music and media sectors, including the case of David Goodwillie, who was hired by Wraith Rovers as a striker in September of 2022 before he was released following a backlash after his conviction, albeit civil conviction, for rape in 2017. So Manchester United have ultimately weighed up the pros and cons of reintegrating Mason Greenwood into the team and have made a decision that the reputational damage that they will receive as a result of Mason Greenwood being back in the team outweighs any benefit that they will get from him being in the team. So they've ultimately made the decision that although they will not terminate his contract because they do not believe he has committed an act of gross misconduct following their internal investigation, they have made a determination that reputationally it is too dangerous for him to play. Therefore, they've made the decision to loan him to Getafe in the summer of 2023 transfer window, and it's likely that he will be loaned out or sold in the summer of 2024 transfer window prior to the expiry of his contract in 2025. So this ultimately isn't a legal question or a legal position that has been taken by Manchester United. This is purely a question of reputational damage, and they've made the determination that having him in the squad will damage their reputation too much, so have taken action so that he will not play again. So to summarise, following the decision of the Crown Prosecution Service to drop all charges against Mason Greenwood, Manchester United conducted a 6-month-long internal inquiry to determine whether the actions of Mason Greenwood amounted to gross misconduct on the balance of probabilities. Following that investigation, the club determined that Mason Greenwood's actions did not amount to gross misconduct, so they did not terminate his contract. They did, however, conclude that the backlash against Mason Greenwood and the club reputationally would be so severe as to outweigh any benefit of Mason Greenwood being reintegrated to the team that the decision was taken that Mason Greenwood would not play for Manchester United again, and therefore he was loaned to Getafe for the 2023-24 season, and likely he will be loaned or sold in the 2024 transfer window prior to the expiry of his contract. But what do you think? Do you think that he should be permitted to play for Manchester United again? Or do you agree that the allegations are so severe that he does not deserve to play for Manchester United? Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this video informative. If you did enjoy it, please consider giving it a like. And if you'd like to see more from me, please do consider subscribing to my channel. Thanks for watching. Take care.